One of the things that I admire about you is your vulnerability in your LinkedIn posts. If people are listening and that you haven't seen Abby on LinkedIn, you haven't connected with her, it's pretty incredible.
I didn't quite appreciate what an impact it was going to have on my life when I started it. I wasn't actually a big user of LinkedIn. I didn't see a lot of value in it. Someone approached me who'd heard me tell a story, and he sort of followed up with me and said, that would be an amazing LinkedIn post. And I was like, really? You think anyone would care about that? It's like, yeah, let's try it.
I think that when we're able to let people truly see us, and that's where I see clients that become friends. People that I see at the conferences who I'm genuinely excited to see, because just like you, we've had those moments where we've talked at a deeper level of not just all the stuff that's going on at work, but who are you?
There have just been so many conversations, I think, that have made my life richer, my advocacy much more effective, the reach of myself, but also the reach of SIA a lot more broad. So it's been super, super, super fun.
Land insights, market trends, industry experts. Welcome to the Land Department Podcast, the state of land and energy as we see it.
Natalie, against all odds, we've been able to record today, and you've got a special guest here. I'm going to just kind of sit on the sidelines and observe while you and Abby talk, but why don't you introduce Abby Hopper for us?
Oh, Claude, thanks for having us. I've been so excited to have Abigail Hopper of SIA with us. Abby is, if you're in the renewable space, you cannot not know her. She is a phenomenal powerhouse of a woman. I think she has a resident seat on every flight in the US, definitely has her suitcase ready. But Abby is, she's inspiring as a woman in energy, as someone who is a proponent of renewables. She leads the charge. So I would love to hear, Abby, what's going on in your world. Tell us about the most important topics with SIA right now.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It is against all odds that we found a time and a place and all the technology is working. It's just an honor. And that was such a kind introduction, Natalie. Thank you. I'm honored that you want to have a chat. So I look forward to it. So I am currently, just as of this moment, in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm getting on my flight leaves in a little less than 3 hours to go back to DC. And so I came here 2 days ago. I spent the whole day before I flew here at the International Trade Commission testifying about tariffs. When I go back, I'll go to an event talking about tax. And then next Monday, I'll be back in Atlanta, like meeting with our industry, right? And talking about what's going on. So that's sort of the whole world that I live in, right? Tax, tariffs, politics, and then also, as you said, leading a team and leading an industry. So I'm happy to talk about any and all of those or whatever else is on your mind.
Yeah, I think, right now there's just a lot of legislation that is being pushed on the state level and on the federal level that wouldn't necessarily be favorable to our industry as a whole. I know, particularly in Texas, I saw where yesterday Senator Lois Kolkhorst's proposed Bill 819 was passed through the Senate with a 22-9 vote, which was concerning because of the ramifications that can have for solar and storage in Texas. We also just went through Senate Bill 388, which said that storage was not dispatchable power in Texas. And so it's going to be very interesting in that state to see what's happening in the House. What is SIA doing in those for situations like that, and what we're also facing in Illinois and in Oklahoma to help at the local level?
So SIA has a big state affairs team. It's actually the portion of our organization that we spend the most money on, and we have the most people in because there's 50 of them instead of just one federal government. But we identify about 15 priority one states. So those are the states that have usually a staff person, outside lobbyists, and usually an outside regulatory attorney so that we can be active both in the legislature and in the state commissions. Texas, not surprisingly, is a huge area of focus for us. It's the number one solar market in the United States, the number two solar manufacturing market. And so last fall, we hired a person on the ground in Texas to be the SIA representative in Texas. We have a lobbying firm. We have an outside comms firm. We have another consultant. I've been there twice in the last couple of months, lobby day and other things to build this story, right? It is one of those weird situations in which if it was only based on kind of the strength of the industry and the strength of the development and the pipeline, like we really there wouldn't even be a debate, right? Because it's so clear that solar and storage are making such a huge impact on the Texas economy. But in some ways, perhaps that's our challenge, is that it's so clear that solar and storage are making such an impact on the Texas economy that there are a lot of folks that would like to stop us in our tracks. So we have done a lot of work in this. I call it the off season, right, in the non-legislative cycle, building relationships, building allies, doing all of the things you would want a lobbying firm to do, getting message testing and doing lots of polling so that we're not going into these legislative debates sort of empty-handed. We have a lot of data, a lot of polling, a lot of political ammunition. So I think we've always thought that the House would be where we'd stop bad bills in Texas. I think that's going to prove to be the case this year, but it's certainly far from over. So we have a lot of resources and a lot of energy there. Same with Illinois. Years of work and years of building infrastructure, building relationships. Oklahoma, I'll be honest, is not a priority one state for us, right? And so, but mostly because the industry hasn't prioritized it. Like we have this bucket of dollars, and we have to figure out where we're going to spend them. So we try to be supportive of efforts in Oklahoma.
And Oklahoma is more wind focused, I would say, than solar and storage. So that tracks. I know from our perspective, at Dudley, we're landmen, right? That's what we do. We deliver energy through land.
Yep.
And when there's legislation proposed like this, what we see from our clients a lot of times is hesitation to begin new projects in those areas that this legislation could impact them negatively, right? So what you're doing, Abby, is so critically important because it doesn't just affect the larger companies. It doesn't just affect the manufacturers. It doesn't affect just our economy as a whole. It trickles down to every company, even like Dudley's, in the sense of these projects coming to fruition and creating work and creating jobs. And I think that is what is most concerning to me right now, is that it's become so polarized with solar and storage. And I don't want to pick on Texas, but we'll pick on Texas. It's become so polarized that, you're right. If you look at it from an economic standpoint of business and being proactive and supportive of the business model and the job creation and the trickle down effect of how good this would be, not only for our electric infrastructure and being able to support the grid as a whole, but for all of the other great benefits, it's a no-brainer. And so I don't understand why it's even an issue that this is not fully supported. And I'm so grateful that you're the one leading the charge to make it happen.
Well, thank you. And I think, the point you made about this trickle down effect is one that it's so important for legislators to understand, right? Because I wouldn't presume to know kind of what they have in their minds, but you could imagine they have sort of these like companies that were formed in California or maybe in New York, and they're coming to their state to upend their business models and upend sort of their culture of oil and gas. But when they hear like, no, it's like tens of thousands of people that are Texans, for example, that are employed in this industry, and you are threatening their livelihood, and they are homegrown businesses and homegrown, the land owners that are getting rental payments and all kinds of benefits. Like that is a very different message than someone like me flying in from Washington, D.C. to say, I've come with the answer, right? Like that's not a particularly effective message. But what I'm good at is figuring out who the right messengers are and making sure that their voices are being heard.
I was in oil and gas for 2 decades. I'm a multi-generational land man. I come from Beaumont, Texas, which was Spindletop, So there's a lot of oil on these foods, right? My joke amongst myself is that I spent so many years. I'm 45, so if I can like end my career in renewables, then maybe I'll like carbon offset myself. you know, um, I am a Texan, and I actually live in Lewis's district. I live in Shiner, Texas, and so it's interesting to me that there are people like me. There's a lot of people are like
A
me
lot of
around.
people like
There seems to be a group think
Yeah.
also, or people that are afraid that will have conversations with me privately that they support renewables or they support wind and solar and storage, um, and they don't speak up in the overall. And that makes me sad as a Texan, because I think that one of the things that we've done really good at as a state is supporting business overall
Mhm.
and trying to make sure that we are having a diversification of energy. So tell me on the national level right now, because you just did your testimony, right? How did that go for you?
It was good. It was in the case, sometimes we call it Solar 3, right? It's about like tariffs coming in on products from Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia. And so that's where the vast majority of our cell and modules are being imported from, to the extent we're importing them. So it's incredibly impactful. I find one of the things that's always challenging is when you're in these very circumscribed regulatory settings that are set in time, right? There's a period of inquiry, and it was a while ago. And our industry changes so quickly, and supply chains change so quickly, that sometimes it feels a little challenging to kind of convey the urgency of the moment with this very circumscribed process. But the really amazing thing was that we had a number of domestic manufacturers uh, in the room objecting to placing tariffs on products, right? So they have made decisions to invest in the United States. They have like hundreds of millions of dollars here, and they still don't want tariffs, right? They still want free trade, fair trade, but free trade. And so that was an interesting perspective to hear on Thursday. I mean, on Tuesday. It was last Tuesday.
What day is it? I know.
I know.
I
Today's
just
Thursday. That was Tuesday. Who knows?
I've been the past 4 days. I've been to Oklahoma City, Seattle, and now I'm in Northern California. So,
Oh my gosh.
I feel your pain a little bit on trying to keep track of where I am and what day it is. You know, it does get a little hairy going to all the events and being a part of everything. But I really and truly wouldn't have it any other way. And I have a
Mhm.
feeling you feel the same.
Yeah, there's something magical about just being in the place and having conversations face to face and sort of building those relationships. Yeah, that's why I spend so much of my time on an airplane.
Yeah, and it's what brings me joy and it excites me. And it's not for everyone, because you're away from home a lot and you get very
Mhm.
used to your suitcase. And,
Mhm.
I know you have children. Your children are older, like my children. We've talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things that I admire about you is your vulnerability in your LinkedIn posts.
Mhm.
I don't know, if people are listening and you haven't seen Abby on LinkedIn, connected with her. It's pretty incredible. Tell me a little bit about that. What inspired you to start sharing openly about your family, your children, your life, and the
Yeah.
struggles that you're having and wins?
It, it's an interesting question, because I didn't quite appreciate what an impact it was going to have on my life when I started it. I I had gotten frustrated. I wasn't actually a big user of LinkedIn, partly because I didn't see a lot of value in it. I felt like it was sort of regurgitative and repetitive, and there were just a lot of voices that were the same over and over and over again. And someone approached me, who'd heard me tell a story. I was just visiting a company, and I told a story, and he sort of followed up with me and said that would be an amazing LinkedIn post, right? It's sort of like a behind the scenes look at something that happened. And I was like, really? You think anyone would care about that? And he's like, yeah, let's try it. So I worked with him for a while and just sort of imagined what it would be like to tell some of these stories that I hear on the road, that I get to witness because of my job. And then I started talking more about, like, not just what my work life. It's funny because my goal in life is to have one integrated life, not like my work life and my personal life, right? Like
Yeah.
the way
Yeah.
that I do my work, it feels like it's all one. And so I just started writing about that a little bit. First of all, I love writing. I've forgotten how much I loved writing. But sharing a little bit about the reality of what it's like to be the only woman in the room, or what's it's like to be a mom who's watching the clock because you've got daycare pickup in a couple minutes, and you got to like figure out how to either end this conversation or leave or whatever. Um, and and the feedback and the connection, like now that's how you and I met, like that's how we really connected, right? It was around these conversations. And I don't know. I don't know if it's a post-COVID thing. I don't know. It's a like where we are in our lives thing. I don't know what it is, but my experience has been that people really want to share about what's really going on in their lives. And there's not a ton of places to do that. So it's been really joyful. It's been really fun. I also do a ton of writing about like what's actually happening in the industry, and like helping people. Like I don't do like you can tell the pictures I take versus the like infographics that my comms team makes, but
Me
the
and Khalil.
infographics are super cool. Like I love them. Like I love them as a way to convey information in an interesting manner. And it does kind of break down some of those silos, as you said, about like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Right. And I have the most interesting conversations with people on the road about like, oh, I read your post about this, or let me tell you about my child, or, I'm struggling with separating from my spouse. And I know you talk about being a single mom. Like there have just been so many conversations, I think, that have like made my life richer and my advocacy much more effective, and like the reach of myself, but also the reach of Sia a lot more broad because of it. So it's been super, super, super fun. Yeah. So now I'm all in on LinkedIn. Whereas before I was like, what is that thing anyway?
I love it. There's so much power and vulnerability. And I think like in business, I know for the first 2 decades of my career, it's always okay, well, you don't want to let people know who you really are.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if it's just a season of life I'm in where it's like, this is who I am.
Right.
And I appreciate you wanting to have that same one life because that's how I operate every day. And I love that about you. I don't want
Well, I love that about you. I mean, it's really I find it a more peaceful way to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not perfect. I'm a very flawed human, as we all are. And, I can be a rock star at work, and some days I'm a terrible wife and mom, and other days I'm terrible at work. I'm a great wife and mom. I mean, it's just the balance of it all, right?
Yeah, totally.
I think that when we're able to let people truly see us, you get more of a buy-in from them. And that's where I see clients that become friends, and people that I see at the conferences who I'm genuinely excited to see, because just like you, we've had those moments where we've talked at a deeper level of not just all the stuff that's going on at work, but who are you and what are you about? And, I've been to a lot of your events, and I want to touch on your events too, because I want to give you the opportunity to talk about your SIA events and also the stuff that you guys do in conjunction with Repress. But it's incredible to me, Abby, and I'm not just like tooting your horn over here, fangirling. Maybe I am, or whatever. You're my friend, so it's okay. But the folks that I talk to on your team when I go, they really, really love you. And what that tells me is the way that you show yourself on LinkedIn, the way that you, when you're talking to people, that's just really who you are all the time. You've created this buy-in with this team of transparency and vulnerability with them that helps them trickle that down to other people. We'll use that trickle down word again, right? So they're doing it. And I feel that from all the people that I interact with at SIA. So you're definitely being authentic on LinkedIn. You're definitely being an authentic leader. What are the challenges in that? Where do you feel like you struggle the most in being that vulnerable with your team and the general public?
Yeah. It's funny when you said my team, I was 100% sure you were going to say how talented they are, because they are, right? They are so talented. And we've grown our team so much. I'm so wiggly. Sorry. We've grown our team so much. And we still are able to keep that culture of excellence and real, which I feel really proud of. Like if I think about kind of what am I most proud of in my career, like building strong teams is very, very high on the list. I would say kind of the what has been the most challenging part of being vulnerable is that sometimes I've gotten feedback from people that it undercuts my professional stature, right? Like people aren't going to take you seriously, or people don't take you seriously because you talk about how sometimes you have to change in a bathroom, which by the way I did 2 days ago. No, I didn't change the bathroom. I changed in my car at the airport, in the airport parking lot. But or they're not going to take you seriously because you talked about how much you're missing your kid today, like they're away at college or whatever. And that has been hard because it, more than anything, I want to be at my career, at my best in my career. And I certainly want to be at my best in serving our industry. So I've really had to take a look and sort of figure out like what really matters to me and what do I think the truth is, right? Just because someone said it doesn't mean it's true. And I don't believe that. Like I believe that the conversations I have with elected officials, with Republican elected officials, Democratic elected officials, policymakers is deeper and richer because I show up like as an integrated human, and the kinds of elected officials that brought up my LinkedIn to me and talked about like, oh, I felt that way, or I read that book, or I wonder the same things. They never talk. It's never about like that graph you put on about AI, right? It's always about, I read about your children, or I wrote one about Sunday scaries, like that feeling on Sunday evening when you're like, oh, the week's coming. Like I had multiple people who have been elected by their peers to high office say, oh, I read that and I would never have the nerve to say it out loud, but I feel that way too.
Sure.
So that's
because
been
they're
the
human
most,
too.
yeah, imagine that. They're human too. So that's been the most challenging. It hasn't been that I'm like afraid that, I'm sharing too much. It's more that people are, there is a group of people that think I'm sharing too much. I don't agree with them. And my sense is always like, well, then don't read it. Like, if you don't want to know, don't read it. You spend a lot of time worrying about something that you totally don't care about.
Yeah, I think it's like I think you just gotta radically be you, and
Yeah.
not everyone's gonna love you, and it's okay. They don't have to. We're not always gonna be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
But if you're just yourself, you're gonna win every time, right? And
And
you're gonna
don't
win
you
the
feel like
right
that's
people.
kind of a season of life thing? Like,
Oh, it's
I'm
taken me a long
53
time to
years
get
old.
here.
Yeah, I did. If you had asked me this 20 years ago, no way. Even 10 years ago, I don't think so. Like a little closer, but yeah, there's something about crossing that Rubicon of 50, at least for me, that gave me so much more freedom. And like, this is who I am, and I'm super comfortable with it. Like, I'm not just comfortable with it. I really like it. Like, I'm really happy with who I am.
Same, and I'm so imperfect, but it works, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm not 50 yet. I turned 46 this year.
Oh, God bless.
But I'm still a baby, but
Our
I
baby.
had some pretty scary health challenges in 2020 and 2021. And it was, when you literally like almost face death multiple times in a couple of years, it makes you reevaluate like, who am I and what am I doing and how am I living my life?
Mhm.
And for me, being able to do what I love every day and that I'm passionate about, which is why I 100% operate our alternative energies division, because it
Mhm.
excites me and I'm passionate about it. And then being able to be myself, right? There's no time. There's no time for anything other than that. And I don't have the time to concoct a different version of me and
Mhm.
effectively lead and inspire a team and
Yeah.
conquer all these great goals for all these companies. There's just no way. Right?
Right.
So I think that's the season. And I think that it's also radical candor, the vulnerability. What does that do? You can force multiply that. If you lead that way, you're going to create that around you, at least what I found within my own team.
Mhm.
And we move faster and we're more effective because of it.
Mhm. I agree. We And then when things aren't working, like you can acknowledge it and say, you know what, this we haven't figured out this communication pathway, like this message is not landing, this uh lobbying effort doesn't seem to be taking off, like let's reevaluate it. Like there is a freedom that comes from just being able to say the hard thing and
Yeah.
acknowledge difficult situations. Yeah, I think it is like the best gift we give ourselves, but also the best gift we give our teens. I know for me, I'm like a million% better parent because I can, like, I have a lot more acceptance about my own challenges, and similarly with my kids, right? Like, my kids are going to be their own individual humans. Like, they're not going to be little mini me's, even though one does look like a mini me. And I spend like zero time worrying about it, you know? Like, I have girlfriends that are like, holy cow, all up in like spreadsheets or with every college their kid might ever think about going to, and what's it going to be and what's it going to mean. And my son is like a junior in high school, so he's about to enter that. And I'm like, he'll end up where he's supposed to end up. Doesn't mean I'm not going to like help him, but it means that I'm not going to take this like big pile of worry and put it on his head.
Yeah, no, for sure. I approach motherhood. I wasn't always this way, but I've got, again, pre-sick Natalie to after sick Natalie. Completely different mother in that regard as well. I view myself sort of like I'm the lighthouse, right? And they're these little ships, and they're going out. They're trying to find their way in the big, scary ocean of the world. All I need to do is keep the light on and love them.
Yes.
That's it. They're going to have beautiful, messy lives, just like I did. And it's not going to fit into a perfect box. And they're going to figure things out, and they're going to change their minds, and they're going to make mistakes. And that is part of the beauty of living. So the more that I try to enact my will on my kids, the worse off they actually are, because they need to figure it out. It's more valuable to them to figure it out on their own. I do the same thing with my team at work. They're probably going to listen to this podcast and go, oh, that's what she's doing.
That's what she's doing. She's lighthousing us.
Yeah, but sometimes you got to throw them in the deep end and just see how they swim.
I love that image.
Yeah.
So here's my question to you. Do you think that, like, in order to get to this point where it sounds like you and I are, where we have some sort of freedom and like integration of cells, we have to go through some very hard situations? Sounds like, your illness was a difficult one. I've certainly had my own. Or can people get there without having hardship?
I mean, I think you can get there without hardship if you maybe take the necessary steps to do the really deep look at yourself, right? Mm-hmm. But that always doesn't come natural. Sometimes I think the wisest, smartest people I know are the ones that have been pummeled the most with life, because those situations that we have, the challenges and obstacles, are just what deepens our spirits. Mm-hmm. And I've failed. I've had a lot of heartbreak, and I've had a lot of failure. And all of the heartbreak and all of the failure is what's built me to who I am, right? Mm-hmm. All the painful lessons.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I've had a ton of heartbreak. I think it's, sometimes I think it's because I'm just so quick to love. Like, I definitely approach life as like, just an abundance of love. But it means that little heart can get squished kind of fast. But I wouldn't do it any other way. But yeah, I feel like being divorced, I had like a perfectly average divorce. Like, God bless us. Like, like nobody, we had a perfectly average divorce. There's nothing exciting or dramatic about it, but it still sucks. And I just lost one parent, lost a second parent. Like, there's just, life happens. And I think that process of loss and heartache and getting to know yourself, if you're doing it, like, sounds like you and I are, it leads you to a much better place.
Yeah. I genuinely, for all of the struggle and all of the pain, I genuinely love where it's brought me. And
100%.
Yeah. I'm so good with it. So tell me about what you have going on with SIA. I know that you guys at your events. I know you have one coming up this summer in New York. Is it
Yeah.
the finance? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Finance, tax,
th-
and buyers. So it's so funny. Like I went to law school. I'm a lawyer. Now I'm a CEO. I know a lot about energy, but a huge chunk of my revenue comes from shows, events. So I have gotten to know a lot about events and about how you structure events and market events and like all that stuff. So it's been really fun. But we have, as you mentioned earlier, we're a 50-50 owner of the RE Plus events with SEPA, and then we do our own events. So the event in New York is finance, tax, and buyers, and we've been doing it for, I don't know, before I got there, so a number of years. And it's such a fun gathering. And I mean, you can imagine this year, I think every year, but this year especially, will be highly relevant to what's happening in our world, given there's so much change in the tax world. And then the Rise 20th anniversary gala is right at the end of Finance, Tax, and Buyers. So I'm staying. A lot of us are staying. So I would encourage everyone to come to New York City and get all dressed up. That'll be really fun. Um,
yeah. I think with the finance and buyers, I went last year. I was actually invited to speak there. Thank you for that opportunity.
yeah.
I was able to be on a panel about community engagement, and I was expecting it to be like requests or even one of the
Oh,
small regional requests, right?
uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so when I came and it was such an intimate setting and the convene, and there was a good gathering of people there, but the gathering of people there was I don't know, I don't want to say it was fancy, but it was kind of high, a little bit higher level than your typical. And there were some really, really great conversations happening.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised with that event. I'm excited to go again this summer
Good.
and see what's going on, what you guys have planned for this year.
Yeah.
Also know that the Read Plus events were back in Vegas in the fall. That's going to be fun. Um,
It's nice. I'm looking out at it now. It's beautiful here.
yeah. And then you've got the regional events happening too. I know in Texas, we have Read Plus Texas. I'll be moderating um, an event there that's May 13th and 14th. I think my event's on the 13th.
Oh,
So
good.
very excited about the Read Plus Texas coming up. I guess that's, my gosh, like
I know it's
less than a
soon.
month
It's like a
away.
month away. Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
be there. I'll be there. You can hang out.
Yeah. And so one of the cool things that Khalil, you may not know that one of the cool things Abby does is she's created this little group of gals she calls Solar Sisters. And when she goes, and not that she's not like, I don't know how she does it all. I don't know. She's got Abby's goals because she manages not only to go and be at these events and do all of this stuff in the background and keep everything together, but she intentionally brings groups of women together, and men are welcome too, by the way, to connect and have a couple of hours time that she could probably be in her hotel room, sleeping, resting, catching up on work. Yet she chooses to spend it with these women, and a lot of them are younger and newer to the industry. Abby, what made you want to start doing that? And what have you gained from that? What have you learned along the way?
Yeah. It is. It is. So first of all, I love going to our events for all the reasons we've talked about, kind of being able to look people in the eye and catch up and hear what's happening in the industry and then hear what's happening in their families. But the first time I walked into, so I was not from the solar industry when I came here. And the first time I walked into one of our events, it like took my breath away how homogenous it was, right? Pretty almost all male, almost all white. And I thought, wow, I legitimately I own this event. We are the owner of this event, and I am intimidated to walk in the door. And I thought, wow, if I'm intimidated to walk in the door, there's got to be other people that like have that same like take their breath away feeling. Like, okay, game face, let's do this. So it started with just these like gatherings in my room. The first like women's events I hosted, it's at the big RE Plus, were literally in my hotel room. Like I would just like put out the word like, hey, room, whatever, 2702 in this hotel, Tuesday night at 8, come on by. And, the first year there were like 10 women and then more women and then more women. And then finally we had to get like a space for it because it got to be a little wacky. But just having those times that are carved out and spaces that are carved out, because there really are. I mean, we track the data, right? We know that women are so much less represented in the attendees and things, in the industry and the attendees, and certainly women of color even more so. So having a space that's like just a moment of respite amidst this very busy time has been really important, and particularly like welcoming younger women earlier in their careers into those spaces and sort of giving them. The first time I did it at the big RE Plus, I went around the room and I was like, all right, what's the one piece of advice you have? Like for many of the women here, it's their first big show. What's the one piece of advice you have? And some of it was very practical, like about shoes. Some of it was about networking. Some of it was about how to utilize your time. Like, so it's the most impactful for your career. But that advice is invaluable. And so I've sort of kept that cross section alive and tried to create more and more spaces where, especially more senior women, can share with more junior women. But I haven't done it in any way that's organized. And I'm like, there's no mentoring program. There's no bureau of speakers. Like, first of all, Rise does a great job, and I don't want to step on their toes. But two, people like me, it's too much. I don't have time. Like, I that is something I can't add to my plate. But I can show up for 2 hours, right? And have real conversations with real humans, and then go out and do a keynote speech. So it's been really fun. And the most fun part to me is when I see women that have met at some of those networking events and then go on to create friendships or create business relationships or become customers or coworkers, or one of them hires the other. Like, I feel this sense of like it's very maternal, I have to admit. Like, like, oh look, the ships are like, my lighthouse is here. The ships are meeting up. This is perfect.
Yes. Well, and I think that we are I'm not going to call us old. We are mature women in energy industry, right?
Yeah.
And I think we have an obligation and responsibility to help these younger women and men. I really do just invest just as much in the men around me as I do the women. But I think that we have a responsibility to show them how to be leaders, show them how to be fearless, show them how to be authentic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they want to come, and when you are a dominant driving force in your industry, they want to come be a part of whatever it is that you have going on. And it's so inherently special to them when you take 10 or 15 minutes and listen to what they're doing and try to give them that motherly love, right? In a career way, right? That's so important. We don't realize sometimes, because we are just our crazy busy selves running around, that what we have to say to those younger folks can be
valuable. Yeah.
Life-changing for them. It can breathe life into them. It can bring confidence into them when they need it to go do the next thing. And that is cool to watch. It's cool to watch them grow.
It's so fun. I hosted a dinner, I don't know, in the last year, and we went around the room, and one of the newer women in her career said, so I have a question. Like, I got on my performance evaluation, my boss told me that I shouldn't be so nice. And I don't really know what to do with that. And you could imagine the more senior women at the table like lost their noodles. They were like, what? You got a performance evaluation that you said you shouldn't be nice? Like, what does that actually mean? And come to find out, like, half of the women at the table had feedback from their supervisors about being too nice. And the conversation it led to was like, okay, what is the feedback we're being given, right? And what is the fear, and what is the concern, and like, how do we handle it? And it was such a transformation. I mean, it was a transformational moment for me. People tell me all the time, I'm so nice. And I don't know if I'm nice or not, but what happens is people often mistake nice for weak,
Yes.
right? And the two get conflated. And so if that's what your supervisor is saying, like he or she is concerned about your ability to negotiate, like head to head with someone, that's a bit more actionable than you're too nice, right? So it was a really important conversation. And it was important for all of these younger women who were getting this feedback to hear how those of us that have been in the industry for 20, 25 years or been in the workforce for 20, 25 years, like the kinds of questions we would ask our supervisor if we got that, or the ways that we have responded, or like what you can push back on to actually get meaningful feedback as opposed to some sort of assessment of your character.
Right. And niceness is misconstrued as weakness a lot of
Ah,
times.
all the time.
But you know what? I choose it regardless because it's who I am. And earlier you had mentioned something about, choosing to love. Well, yeah, I choose to love. I choose to be kind. Has it made me any less effective as a landman or negotiator? No, Abby. I mean, I can still be a barracuda negotiator in a kind way. And I actually, I think the guys that are on my team and definitely the guys at Deadly, yeah, but they know. I mean, I I can be kind and I can be loving and I can be nice, but I can also get my way.
Right. Right. You're
Yeah.
probably better at what you do. I mean, you have skills and that you're really good at what you do. And you can do it with love.
Likewise. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that these young women need to know that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They
Absolutely.
do. So, we talked a lot about your children. They're all in college. Or you've got the one at home in high
I have
school still,
one
right?
in high school. One in high school.
And he is off at school, correct?
Yeah, he's at boarding school. So
Yeah.
I have a lot more freedom than people that have kids at home. But like I'm in year 2 of that, right? So I've had kids at home for 20 years and I've now had kids not at home for 2. So this is a new world for
Yeah.
me. But I did
Same.
all of this with babies I call them babies. They're all taller than I am, but
Isn't it wild? It's wild for me being a mother of adults. I'm like, number one, how did this happen? I still feel 18 most times, right? Um, but I just went, in the first leg of this journey, I went to go see my youngest adult daughter, she graduated college biomedical sciences, getting ready to go to PA school. Her boyfriend is a aerospace engineer. I'm like, my God, you guys make me feel so stupid. But I was able to go and spend some time with them. And it's just so interesting to me, being in this season of my life where I drive away from my kid's house and I'm saying bye and going on to live my life. I wouldn't have not been able to do what I'm doing now 5 years ago, 6 years ago when they were home. I wouldn't have.
yeah.
And so I've got some younger men that work for me and they really like to make babies. We are in the baby season at Dudley Land. I think we have like 5 or 6 coming in the next 3 months. So, Patrick Durman, he's genuinely my right hand in Renewables. He leads all of our Renewables acquisition projects. He's got a 2-year-old and I think a almost 1-year-old and a baby on the way. And then so I only get him out to events probably twice a year, but he really holds it down so that I can. And then Blake Thomas, who I would say is my left hand, Blake is having twin boys in May. So these guys are definitely making some babies and they're younger. And I think, I want them to be able to stay at home and help their wives and be there for their kids at this time, right?
Yeah.
So if I need to go out, I'm done with that era.
Yeah.
If I need to go out and travel and pound the pavement and see everyone and do what we need to do and they can hold it down, then it works, right?
Yeah.
It works.
That's what a team means, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to support your people and put the right people in the right seats.
Exactly. And like they have seasons too, right? This might be a season when they're home more and then maybe later they'll be on the road more. And like that is one of the biggest learnings that I had. Like I just felt like whatever was happening right now was going to happen for the rest of my life. the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that has not proven to be the case. And I didn't know that until I knew it.
Everything in life is just a season.
Yeah. Well, I think we're running out of time, Abby. I want to honor your time. Thank you for joining us. How can people get in touch with you? You're a great LinkedIn follow. You got tons of events to attend. Where should people look to get in touch with you?
Well, it's been such a pleasure. It's such a fun, and just like my heart is full. So thank you to both of you, and thank you especially to Natalie. Our website has all of the events, seia.org, and then I think I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. I think it's Abby Hopper.
Yeah.
So easy.
Yeah. We'll link to your LinkedIn in the show notes, Abigail Hopper. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you around. Awesome.
I'll see you in Houston, if not before.
Let's go dance, and I'll have my dancing shoes ready.
I'll bring my boots.
Great. Thanks.
Enjoyed today's topic? Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Learn more at dudley-land.com. See you next episode.